Hi there guys, got a bit of an interesting video here for you today. What I'm going to be doing is making a shroud for the Edgun Leshiy 2. In one of my previous videos you saw that I got the Valkyrie kit. Now you can opt to buy the Valkyrie kit with a moderator included in the package, but I opted not to do this as I've got the facilities to make my own. So what I thought I'd do today is bring you along through the process of how I'm going to make my shroud. Now, the job of the shroud is to make the rifle quieter. The standard Leshiy 2 uses that oblong moderator section at the front here, but obviously this cannot be used in conjunction with a Valkyrie kit. So what I'll be doing is making a shroud that comes to about 30mm in front of the Valkyrie kit end here, and that rides all the way down, so it's a couple mil shy of this face here. I've got my stock pre-cut. I'm going to be using aluminium tube. I'll thread the ends, turn the OD and make some inserts for the front and the back so that the shroud is captive. When it's finished it should look something like this. Obviously I'm going to anodise the tube so it's black, and I'll put a 1/2 inch UNF on the end of this as well so I can add an additional moderator if required. Another thing I'll be doing is changing the thread that's on the end of the Leshiy 2 barrel. Standard Leshiy barrel is equipped with an M14 by 1.25 thread. What I'll be doing is turning the thread down to accept a 1/2 inch UNF. There are two reasons for doing this. Firstly is that in the future I'll be making my own barrels. I'll be buying blanks and turning them down. I'll probably have all the calibers eventually, but I want to standardise the thread that's on the end, so all the others I'll thread 1/2 inch UNF, the same as this one. The second reason is that I prefer this setup. This is a 1/2 inch UNF with a shoulder on it, rather than the shoulder being on the face of the thread. This is just personal preference, as both type of threads do the same thing. However, I prefer the shoulder at the rear. Now I'll rethread the barrel off camera. Barrel threading is a whole nother topic that I'll probably make a video of in the future. But for now we'll just concentrate on the shroud. I won't show all the making of the shroud, I'll just bring you in at key points. So I'll thread the barrel first, then I'll start work on the rear section, and I'll bring you back when we're about to thread it and put the O-ring groove in there. So before we start, I thought I'd show you how to remove the barrel. Simply these 4 screws here, they simply clamp a split collet that's in the block. So what I found easiest to do was loosen each screw one at a time, a small amount. What this does is remove most of the tension from the split collet and allows you to more easily undo them. If you undo each one all at once, then the last one you do be extremely tight. So it's easier to do them a small amount, one at a time. Once they're all loose, pull down this lever here. What you can do then is slide the barrel back a small amount to keep the latch down. Then what you've got to do is rotate the barrel until you find the split in the circlip. What you have to do is line that up with the roller. Then you can simply push the barrel out. That's the split in the circlip there. What you have to do is just align it to that roller. Then pull the roller down and slide the barrel out. Like so. And there the barrel is in one piece. Right, so I'll get started on these things and bring you back in a minute. Right, here we are guys. Just cut the thread on the end of it there. It's a 1/2 inch UNF, fits nicely, nice and shiny. This goes on there a treat. What I had to do was I turned all of the M14 thread off. Then because it's a bit long, it was 20mm, I made a spacer up which fits over the barrel nicely, and then I turned it as one unit, so it's got a nice shoulder there, and the thread itself is 10mm with a 2mm gutter. This is how I did it. Like I said, I'll go over a proper video on barrel threading in a later date, but You've got two sets of bolts here, and what you're basically trying to do is you're trying to keep the barrel straight, not pointed up, not pointed down. The bore, the internal bore, is often not in line with the external diameter. So what you do is you set it up in something like this. Some people use a spider with both ends of the headstock of the lathe, but my headstock's too thick, so I have to use this. So using a long reach indicator in the tutorial there, you go in the bore and measure on the outside as close to this end as possible, then as far in as you can. So I normally go to that break there, and that over that distance you get it running true to the bore of the barrel rather than the external diameter. This one wasn't too bad, if I'm honest. It was only 0.1 of a millimetre out, but doing it like this, there's no chance of it clipping, the shroud clipping or anything like that. So okay, right, next job, start working on the shroud. So I'll bring you back in a minute. Okay, so here we are at the back cap. We've got a thread to cut on this. I just thought I'd show you how I do it. What we're going to do is going to cut a 1mm pitch thread. So this is an OD of 27, just under, and we want to put a 1mm pitch thread on it. So I've got my tool set up there, a 60-degree single point cutting bit, and what we're going to do is put the lathing gear in the correct pitch and feed in the tool gradually. So we'll take light passes across the face until we get the thread depth that we want. There are loads of videos on YouTube about thread cutting, so if you want more information, just search up one of them. I won't bore you with the details for now. So I'll do the first one with you, then I'll cut back to when we've finished the threads. Right, so here we go. So that's the first pass done. I'll get the others done and then I'll bring you back. Right, so that's the thread cut. Nice fine 1mm pitch thread there. Didn't take too long. What we've got to do next is bore this hole out in here and put an O-ring groove in there. Okay, that's that part of the shroud done. I will have to come back at a later date and just put two holes for a C-spanner in the back there, but I'll do that off camera. You can see there the O-ring groove in there with an O-ring in. There. Slides over nicely. Not too tight, not too loose, just right. That will stop the back of the shroud from rattling on the barrel and keep it nice and secure. So next up I'll do the front section. What I'll do is I'll do all the turning off camera and I'll bring you back when we're milling the slots out. It's not a very interesting job, it's just a lot of plain turning. So I'll bring you back when we're at that stage. I've just finished turning it. You see we've got the baffles in there at the moment. Still need to mill the slots out of these parts here, but everything else is done. We've got our 1/2 inch UNF on this end, which will screw directly onto the barrel, and we've got the thread up here which will accept the shroud tube. I thought while we're at this stage I'd give you a little insight as to sort of what I've done to get it to this stage. So if we look at our drawing, what I did first was I turned and threaded the 1/2 inch UNF on the end. Also turned this to just above diameter and faced this end here. What this did was give me a nice reference on this thread here, so that when we screw a moderator on it later we know it's going to be in line with the shroud. Once the thread was on the end, what I did was I held it in a female mandrel. This is what's in the chuck at the moment. So the thread is on in here. The female mandrel just ensures that everything is being turned to the reference of that 1/2 inch UNF. So everything's in line and everything's going to be nice, straight and parallel. So that as the pellet enters this end, we're not going to be clipping one of the baffles. So it's all been drilled, ready to go. So the next job will be putting the slots in these sections, and then finally putting the flats on the 1/2 inch UNF that's in the female mandrel. So I'll get this taken out of the lathe and get it set up in the mill, and then I'll bring you back when we doing the slots. Alright guys, so here we are over at the mill. I've done a couple of the slots just to show you what we're achieving, but I got it set up in the mill quite nicely. This end is supported on the 1/2 inch UNF in the female mandrel that I showed you in the lathe. It's just on some 1, 2, 3 blocks and clamped down. This side is supported by a 1/2 inch UNF male mandrel that's screwed in where the barrel's going to go. So this is the first slot, this is the second slot, and these are the 2 chambers that we've milled so far. Look down there, you can see the holes. These are what the pellet's going to travel through. What this will do is, as the pellet travels through these holes, the pellet will fill the hole and it will block air from escaping down the end of the barrel. So travelling down the end there, what it will do is it will force the air out of this hole here down the back of the shroud. Right, so I'll get you the rest of the slots milled and I'll bring you back when it's all finished. Right, that's the 2 ends of the shroud done. We've just got to make the tube now. It's nearly cut to length. What we've got to do is turn the OD and then turn it to size. Then each end can be threaded to accept the shroud fittings. While at this stage, I just thought I'd give you a little close up on this part and some more information on how a shroud like this works. So here's a close up. Obviously we've got holes in each of these baffles here which the pellet travels through. This is a 177 shroud, so this is a 177 pellet. It will be travelling along the inside of these baffles. As it reaches each one, the air that's behind the pellet will be forced out of these holes. The shroud will also be back vented. What this means is at the end of this tube, towards the breech end of the gun, there'll be a series of very small holes. What this will allow is the air that is forced back through the shroud to be released slowly. The more that you can control and slow the air escaping from the barrel, the quieter the rifle will be. Right, I'll get the shroud tube threaded and turned to OD. There's nothing but really interesting in that process, so I'll do that off camera and I'll bring you back when we're done. Right, there it is guys. Shroud is finished, ready for anodising. You saw us make the 2 ends, the front and the back, and the tube was just some thin wall aluminium tube. So it's all in there nicely. See, we've got the 1/2 inch UNF there. This is just an old test mod that we use, but you can see there, fits a mod. It's quite a nice size actually. So if I need it to be even quieter than it is, then I can screw a mod on. While we're talking about the quietness, it is very quiet. Just without a moderator on, the shroud as it sits now is easily much quieter than the standard one. Surprisingly, the action noise, the cycling noise of the magazine is much louder than the muzzle now. So I'm really happy with how that's turned out. Just thought I'd show you something I've been working on for the end as well. Normally for a 1/2 inch UNF we make a small threaded thread protector, so that just screws on there and stops the threads getting damaged. Nice and knurled, so it's nice and grippy. But because this is sort of a special gun, I thought I'd make something a little more interesting, and this is it here. I don't know how well the camera's going to pick up it because it's quite shiny, but that just screws on the end there and finishes off the muzzle quite nicely. Get a good look at it there. So what I'll do now is I'll sandblast and prepare the shroud for anodising. The anodising process is a bit boring, there's nothing really that interesting about it, so I'll skip that and just show you it when it's black. So, bring you back in a bit. Right, that's it finished guys, all anodised nicely. I've got to say, I am really happy with the way it turned out. I think that finishes the gun off nice. The end cap there, as you can see, nice bit of detail on the end. You only really see the end, the rest of it's covered by the handguard, but I think that does set it off a treat. It's a fair bit quieter than the standard mod. I would give you a before and an after, but this camera auto balances the volume, so you won't hear a difference, although to me there is a noticeable difference. So much so that I've noticed that the back of the gun, this portion here, makes more noise than the front. If you block over this portion with a towel or a heavy piece of cloth and fire the gun, it's almost silent. There's no way I can easily make this quieter, so I'm well happy with it. Right, that's it for this one guys. Hope you've enjoyed it, maybe learned something. I'll give you a few close-ups and then we'll call it good. There's the end cap there. Right, that's it for this one guys. Hope you've enjoyed it, been a bit different. So, I'll see you in the next one.